Hi, everybody. Well, we are here at the very last part of my book, the epilogue. So, hi, Chandra. Thank you for loving me through this whole thing. So if you haven't been here before, you need to stop right now. Please, as a storyteller, if you haven't been here before, unless you have like the thing that absolutely requires you to have to know the end before the beginning, you need to stop right now and follow the link in the description and go back at least to the first one. And, you know, I'm one of the people who's like, no, I can't read this book because it's number 4 and I haven't read 1 to 3. You know, hi, Marta. Yeah, so I'm one of those people, so I'm biased. I know people who are like, you know, read the last chapter first. So if you're that kind of person, I'm not even going to say that I forgive you. I'm just going to say, okay, fine. But if you are not, stop right now and go to the YouTube channel and listen to at least a few, definitely the first one, and at least, you know, as many as you can manage, because this is the end. And for those of you who were with me last night, my God, that was hard. I don't remember writing half of it. I mean, I have the journals. I wrote them in composition notebooks. So I know, you know, it's real. B, as I was telling someone today, I just wanted to, like, I'm still in awe of my naivete and my, I felt a lot of shame and embarrassment actually while I was reading last night, and afterwards, I had to really work to clear a lot of that last night, because how did I not see what was going on? Like post end of marriage, post, you know, which I've mentioned that stuff throughout. A lot of stuff has happened. 12 years. I mean, my mom died, you know, a lot of stuff. But I thought that I could have sex with my friend, like, and it would be okay. Like, I don't even know. I know I was doing the best I could with the lack of knowledge that I had. But yeah, it was humbling. And thank you to those who are still my friend. You know, I looked at it and I was like, oh God, no one's going to want to date me ever, because how much, like, if I can self-delude to that point, which again, I don't know. I don't think it was self-delusion. It was just, I really did think that was possible somehow. Yeah, I'm speechless. I joked. I was like, hey, yeah, you know, the one thing I have going for me is I have a therapist now. So I can check delusions against that. I'm still uncomfortable. I'm kind of twitching, you can tell. Yeah, that was really amazing. There were a couple of places that I know I'm doing the negativity thing, but it's real. People are you know, it just is. Yeah. My goal is to move from self-criticism to self-awareness. And I am leagues beyond, man, where I was when I wrote this book. Leagues. However, reading it again and re-feeling all the feelings has really, hi Heidi, has really done it. It's been kind of crazy. So I say all that to say, I don't say all that to say, I just say all that because I want to tell you, and I really appreciate your being with me and facing the book, and my old self and my current self too. So I would love, before we start, I would really love, hi Heidi, I would really love to hear from any of you. I'm not saying I'm not going to do it if I don't hear from anybody, but I think I'm going to do more video stuff. And I would love to hear any thoughts or encouragement, or like, go for it or whatever for in the future. I don't know. It feels good. It feels good to be with you guys. It feels good to do this somehow. It feels right. So Everything is kind of gel-like and stuff, but we'll see what happens afterwards. Okay, I'm going to stir my tea. For those of you who haven't been here, and if you haven't left yet because you're just stubborn and don't want to read the rest, this is my book, The Oat Project, How I Faced My Fear and Came of Age in One Wild Summer. And it's a memoir, so it's all true. I have the composition notebooks to prove it, and the voice recordings and all of those things. And it's from 2007. I did 24 things I had never done before. I sowed my wild oats and did it all in 14 weeks. So that's what it's all about. There are parts in the narrative that are inner thought. I changed to first person. Sounds a little weird, but I think you'll get used to it. And then there are parts that are in parentheses, which are from sort of current day. So 2016, which is when the book came out. There's a playlist in the description, as well as when it says read the. If you want to read this all over again in print or give it to somebody, I would deeply appreciate your buying my book. I will be redoing the cover, which is right here. To be not crass. If you want the naked cover, people, you got a month or two. Just saying. All right, let's do this. Last night, I wanted to stop several times because it was uncomfortable. I'm not going to stop. But cheers. No whiskey, still tea. Same, hi Don. Okay, epilogue. So what happened? So much, so little, and so much. From 9 years later, I can tell you that my feet are still set toward love. I could go task by task and report to you in mind-numbing detail which ones I've repeated, dancing, and each new wild thing I've done since 2007. I'll spare you. Instead, I offer a few stories and highlights. A hug from a hooker. Thank you, Joe Carroll. Last night, November 2007. Last night, everyone was asleep, but I was hyped up on coffee and needed to write. Instead of waking anyone at home, I drove around and ended up at Dunkin' Donuts. It was deserted, thank God. I bought bitter black decaf. The counter lady gave me 4 free disgusting donut holes. Parentheses, yeah, I ate them, despite how the roof of my mouth felt gummy after the first bite. And I settled into a nice writing rhythm. 7 pages later, as I was congratulating myself for hard work, a lady with horrible teeth put her stuff on the table next to mine and said, "All right, you're a writer. I need to talk to you." Crud. I feel like a doctor. This happens so often. There goes my flow. She launched into a story of prostitute deaths. Whoa, I've never talked with a prostitute. Cop corruption, chomos, Mexican mafia, college at UC Boulder, forced meth addiction, mercury injection, and how she couldn't write down her story, which I had to drop my project for because the cops were trying to kill her. She jumped up every time a cop car passed, saying, "See, they're following me." I had never seen so many cop cars. When she asked me about my book, I said that it was about sowing wild oats, but I skipped that it was about me, recently, letting her assume it was in the past. It seemed wrong, patronizing, for me to assert to a prostitute my usual spiel about the value of sowing wild oats in the midst of life. The thing is, she was beautiful, or could have been, if meth hadn't ruined her teeth. Olive-skinned, black-haired, tall and slender, with refined facial features and gestures. She was articulate, polite, quoted classical literature, had her degree, so she said, in English, and was convinced that her book would win the Pulitzer Prize. I could see the remnant of what she might have been, and it was powerful and stunning. Her words began to smother me, though. And then she said, "You know, I graduated and got married and then divorced the bastard and went apeshit. I really sowed my wild oats. I had men begging for me constantly, and I did it all." She cocked a finely plucked eyebrow at me and said, "And look where it got me." I could not look away, even after she tried to bum a ride across town, even after she said I was stupid not to immediately start writing down her story, even after she checked out the pipes in the men's bathroom for drug caches, even after she said her grandfather was a Catholic prophet who named her Mary because she was the Mother Mary reborn to avenge the murders of women and children dumped on the West Side by system-wide corruption, including the cops, hospitals, and agencies. Inside, my jaw remained dropped wide. Outside, I put my head on my hand and just listened. I finally packed up after encouraging her several times to write down her story and connect with local writers. I look forward to reading all about it one day. Oh, I'll be dead by then, but that will make it even more tragic and real and beautiful, she said. Okay, well, take care. Then she rose from her feet and said, "Give me a hug, dear." I held my body as far away as I could, instinctively trying to not get too close, and said, "Take care," and walked out the door. The donut lady sat outside, watching us and smoking. "Have a good night, hun." "You too," I said, feeling guilty somehow. I got in my car, pulled out of the parking lot, turned east on the street behind the shop so the hooker wouldn't see I was indeed going her way. Parentheses, why couldn't I have been fearless and given her a ride? And I started shaking. I wept. I had just seen the flip side of me. A mother, a writer, intense personality and drive. And yet her wild oats killed her. Slow or fast, as she said, she's dead already. As I drove to my cushy bed and certain breakfast, I realized my ideas about wild oats assume a protection not everyone enjoys. I understood fully the need for people in society to preach, "Don't risk it." How do I know that my daughter will be able to resist going apeshit or exerting her sexuality? A little different. I do my very best to make her strong, secure, and smart, but how can I be sure? I can't. Locking her in a cage of fear and risk avoidance sounded pretty tempting right then. I slowly stopped crying and drove home. The sowing of my wild oats had brought me freedom of spirit, fearlessness, and beautiful friends. The hookers had brought her death. How do I reconcile them? I wish I had given her a real hug. Journal. 12/16/2007. I considered eternity today without panicking. I looked in its face, and I did not panic. And my mind returned to the dune, to the clarity of the stars and my vision. I will set my feet toward love. My heart is a muscle. Jack. In December 2007, we went to a big, snazzy Christmas party. We talked with a blustery German man my father's age, and when I told him about the book and project, he said, "Well, marriage is hard work." I don't know if I can do a German accent for you guys. Excuse me, but he had one. He had misunderstood me, and I corrected him as to the project's point. Nothing to do with marriage, all about explorations, but he didn't seem to hear me. "I'll tell you a story," he said. A husband and wife are peacefully eating breakfast, and the wife suddenly wallops the husband over the head with a frying pan. He yells, "Why did you do that?" She yells back, "For the past 30 years, you've thrown your wet towel on the floor after showering, leaving me to have to hang it up. I can't take it even one more day. I'm leaving you." The husband says, "Not once in 30 years have you asked me to do this. I would gladly have hung up my towel if I knew you cared, because I love you." The German man triumphantly said, "See, marriage is about communication." Jack left us to get refills a couple of minutes later, and I said, sorry, I don't know why my nose is itching. Okay, there. And I said, "In your story, what if the man had sincerely asked her husband to hang up the towel because she was built in such a way that it hurt her for him to leave it on the floor, and he ignored her?" He looked startled and said, "That is another thing entirely." And if he disdained her need for him to hang the towel, told her she was being too intense, I said, watching Jack make his way back across the room. He looked down at me with sadness in his eyes. Another thing entirely. I felt no triumph for proving my points, only deep, sorrowful, hopeless resignation. When I told my best friend about the man's story, she said, "Deal breakers are deal breakers, no matter how small. Ignore them to your peril. You have to choose to change yourself to not caring, or accept them and mitigate the consequences of staying, or leave." From my perspective, I tried and tried to get closer to Jack. Over our almost 10-year marriage, I made missteps, definitely. Not finding a way to afford counseling and therapy for both of us, not being more insistent, not understanding perhaps he was offended by my awkward attempts at learning about oral sex, having such low self-esteem that perhaps I taught him to disdain me. I could go on, but shall spare myself and you. By the first week of January 2008, every moment with Jack seemed so saturated with my body's plea of, "Reach for me, please," that I couldn't stand it, and started sleeping in my friend Beth's basement room, returning home by 6 a.m. every morning so the kids wouldn't know. Facing so many fears over the summer had woken me up, and it felt as though I dove into the deep end of life, and he wanted to stay in the kiddie pool. Some marriages have trust broken in one fell swoop of a decision, like a sudden affair. But to me, the breaking of that trust to move towards closeness, to bond, to listen, to care enough to go outside oneself, happened little by little over years. That years-long dearth of physical affection, even when I begged it of him, broke my faith in his love for me, and eventually broke my love for him irreparably. He's a good man, great father, good friend, still. But for whatever reason and in whatever ways, we worked externally, but not internally. We grew apart instead of together. From the perspective of time and distance and healing, rather than saying, "The fault is there," it was more like saying, "The sky is blue." We had talked many times over the years before, and more in the months after that summer, trying to figure it out. From January through almost all of March, we tried to maintain normality for the children while gingerly attempting to repair our marriage. We, quote, had a talk 5 times in those weeks. Most ended without resolution, though, to me, it felt good to finally speak openly. In our last talk, days after we had done nothing to celebrate our 10-year anniversary, he said, "After we talked last time, I just kind of gave up." I wailed inside and wept quietly, but had no words, and asked, "Why?" "I don't know." And with his words, an Alfred Adler quote came to my mind. "Life happens at the level of events, not of words. Trust movement." I said, "Jack, maybe you can't define the inner workings of your heart and mind, but your actions are a clue, and we both have to take them as such." We sat next to each other, not touching. If you can't figure it out, what you're willing to do is what you're willing to do. That you weren't willing to move towards me all this time, years, you should take as a clue to what you really feel and not try to force it into something it's not. We were both weeping. I know that you love me. I love you. But this is not the way marriage should be. We don't seem to work or even be good for each other in a lot of ways. I almost whispered. I had been specific. I needed him to reach for me, and he didn't and couldn't. And he did not know why. Crying, both of us, he could never tell me why. I no longer fault him for this. It is simply how he was. I had married someone who saw me, not my body, who I trusted because of it, not knowing that I needed someone who saw me and my body with delight, and reached for it always in affection and passion. The day after our last talk in March 2008, I took off my ring. It felt like more of a lie to wear it than it did to go without it. A piece of paper held by our government did not bind the covenant between us. That was over. And parentheses, Jack felt the same way about that. Always has. I was no longer married. I slept at my friend's basement and returned home every morning for 8 months, then got an apartment in the autumn of 2008. I see Jack several times a week in picking up our children for this and that. We have kept as our goal the preservation and health of our children and are thus good friends, caring for each other through the ups and downs of the years since. He's family and was a beloved son to my mother. I know we will be good friends for life. And we're still good friends. Journal. I recognize that this discovery of myself is much more tolerable because of what I cannot tolerate in Jack, his silence. It would be more difficult if he ranted and raved, tried to make me feel guilty, but then that would indicate passion. And though his silence makes it easier on the surface, it makes it cut deeper because he is showing how he cannot care in the way I need him to. The irony, too, is that how I thought Jack loved me, no holds barred, made it possible for me to awaken, and thus to see how he really loves me, why I married him, our problems, my deal breakers, and the end. We have never had a knockdown, drag-out fight. We are living proof that two good people do not always make a good marriage, and that decently happy people make good parents. He is a terrific father. I'm thankful and fortunate to count him as my friend. The Oat Council. Looking back on who I was, on what I did and wrote, how I handled things, I wonder that I had any friends left by the end of that summer. I'm still good friends with Ellery, Erin, Sarah, Suzanne, and Arissa. I have begun to recover my friendships with Kate and a few others who dropped away over those months. I now understand that the project was often a trigger for others in many ways. Back then, I was so insecure and clueless, I took it as simple rejection and judgment. But I can say without condition that as a result of this project and my trajectory after it, I found my tribe. Owen. Man. Thing isn't working. Owen. The golden amber of the Dune weekend was all. He did not kiss me. We did not cuddle again, did not touch each other, except to hug goodbye. On November 17th of that year, Owen stopped talking to me for 6 weeks. He had found a girlfriend. I could not stand up straight, hunched down over my core, and cried for 6 weeks. I never told him that I was in love with him. I am sure he knew. I needed him to move toward me. Parentheses, sound familiar? And he could not do so. finding breaking up my marriage intolerable. I did not know what I was doing except thrashing and mourning heartbreak slow over years with Jack and fast over weeks with Owen. For years, I fantasized that on my deathbed, Owen would sit by my side, holding my hand, answering every single question, tying up every single loose end, making everything he had thought or said crystal clear. In those 6 weeks of nothing, I picked up the flu from one of my children, and it turned into bronchitis, which I could not kick for a year. Months later, Ellery noted, "You cough when you talk about Owen." I saw him only a few times after November until I saw him in 2010. He lived far away and had reconnected with me on Facebook, and he wanted to see me. We went on a date. The sex was as shattering as perhaps we had sensed it would be all that time before. He said, "This feels like a hello." We saw each other a few times over the next couple of years when he visited home. Each time felt like both a hello and a goodbye. Each time healed my heart as the connection we had felt from the first moment of meeting remained. When he invited me to his wedding, I was humbled and honored. All those words we had spoken, of knowing each other for life because we already knew each other, they were as true for him as for me. I was nervous to meet his family and friends and would have been stuck in shy fear of their judgment if I had not twice confirmed with Owen that he really did want me there, even if my book released beforehand. His, quote, "I will never be proper," freed me to be myself and to enjoy connecting with his lovely, deep, kind bride and his joyous, fun, passionate family and friends. As I watched the simple, heartfelt ceremony, my love for Owen blossomed and transformed, expanding to include and hold his wonderful people. And suddenly, I was free. The pain of loving him was gone. I was free and clear and so thankful and happy to be a real part of his life and their lives, thankful for them, not just him, in mine. Rich, deep, real, not just in my head. You know when a crocheted fabric gets a knot, all tangled and part of the beautiful pattern, but snagged? And then you work it back and forth, loosening it, spreading it out so its colors can shine to show the beautiful pattern. That is what happened as I watched Owen and his bride become man and wife. My love for him, born in the summer of 2007, was of that season. And in writing about it for so long, trying to figure it out and accurately communicate its story and meaning, it had tangled and snagged. Out of necessity, yes. But it would have stayed knotted if I had not gone to Owen's wedding. Faced myself, faced him and his continued regard, faced his bride and his people. And the knot inside of me loosened and smoothed out, shining forth in the pattern of the love that underpins every friendship and connection. Beautiful, full of complex life for life. What you need. April 2008. At last year's Pikes Peak Writers Conference, when new friends and old grilled me for hours about this project, it had shocked me. This year's conference was fundamentally different. I was different. As I walked around and talked with people, I discovered a confidence in myself that made meeting editors, agents, and authors easy instead of nerve-wracking. I was no longer afraid. My friends noticed. Deb was the first. We hugged hello, separated, and with her hands on my shoulders, she looked me in the eyes. "How are you?" "I am good. Very good," I said. Her eyes widened. "I can tell. I've wondered all year if doing that project would change you, and it did. You're present, and you've never been like that." Excuse me. "Yeah," I said. Her response was still hard to fathom, though. Was I so much worse before? I feel closer to the ground somehow, I said. After dinner, I ran into another friend talking to a tan, good-looking man who stopped talking when I walked up. Eddie, an author on the faculty from New York City. As we shook hands, firm grip, my body trilled and awareness sparked between us. His confidence was irresistible. I love cocky men. His sharp blue eyes looked me up and down. Does he like what he sees? I wasn't used to being checked out. Eddie bought me a drink at the bar, and the flirt was on. Though I wasn't immediately convinced, he seemed into me, full force. Deb and come at me. Her book started right here after last year's banquet, when a lesbian kept hitting on her. What? I yelled. I forgot Eddie. It was hysterical, she said. She hated me, I said. I turned to Eddie, his bemusement clear. She was furious because I disagreed with her when she said, notice other women's beauty must be at least bisexual, if not lesbian. Why do you think she was furious, Janae? Asked Deb. She wanted you to be bi, so you'd go for her. My mouth opened to retort and instead formed an oh. Janae kept hoisting her strapless dress up while she talked about how she was still breastfeeding and her boobs were filling with milk and how she really needed to pump every time the girl's mouth fell open. I was still speechless. Eddie was laughing, looking me up and down again, imagining milk-filled, even larger boobs. I wondered. You had no clue. Are you teasing me? I finally got out. Nope, said Deb. I really thought she was mad about the book. That made it much funnier to watch, she said. So tell me about your book, said Eddie. Our bodies flirted while I did. When I told him about going to the strip club, he agreed with those insisting I had only gone halfway by not kissing or having sex with the strippers. What did your husband think of the tattoo? Well, his exact words were, it doesn't really matter now, does it? But maybe he liked it. I bit my lip, looked across the lobby, and squirmed. Damn, Janae, said Eddie softly. He gets it. The disappointment, I thought. I went on to explain the how and why of the demise of my marriage. His eyes were serious, understanding, and concerned as he asked questions to clarify. He seemed to intuit the truth without judging me. What you need is a fling, he said. What do you mean? You need to find some guy you're attracted to but don't know and fuck each other's brains out twice a day for 3 weeks. My brow furrowed. Could I do that? Would I do that? How do you find a man? I could never do that here, I said. I know too many people. So you go to Denver. Perfect distance for a booty call, he said, shrugging. Booty call? I thought. Me? But what if I don't like him? I asked. Doesn't matter. You have to be attracted to him. He'll definitely be attracted to you, he said, lazily looking me up and down again. Shit. You don't get to know each other, you don't share anything but sex, and you barely talk. You just fuck. Huh, I said. I have no words, I thought. I'd do it if what you needed was a one-night stand and I didn't have a girlfriend. Crud, I thought. Phew. Crud. I saw regret in his eyes, but I also saw respect. 3 weeks, he said. Why that long, I asked. Because you need time to learn what all-out sex can be like, and it takes more than one night to do that. I kind of wanted the second person I slept with someone I loved, I thought, or at least liked, or at least respected. And it can't be anyone you know, he said. Why not? Because it's going to end. About 8 days in, you'll notice the fire that attracted you both in the beginning has quieted down. A week later, he doesn't return your texts quite as quickly, or you don't. And then about 18 days in, you're probably annoyed or bored. And at the end, you either part amicably or someone gets hurt, he said, shrugging. But it ends. Okay, I said, my mind already wondering how to get this fling thing going. Eddie had handed me my third drink as we talked with other people at the bar when Chris and Deb surrounded me, saying, Janae, Could you come with us to the bathroom? Sure, I do have to go. As soon as the door closed, Sue asked, Janae, do you know what you're doing? Going to the bathroom? No, with Eddie, said Chris. What do you mean, with Eddie? I asked. You know he's planning on taking you to his room, said Deb. I fell into my usual naivete. He's just flirting with me. No, he's deadly serious, Janae, said Deb. But he has a girlfriend, I said. And I thought, my gut tells me I can trust him. Janae, honey, Deb said kindly. Men on the road lie. It's not that we think he does. They just do. And we don't know him well. Okay, I thought. Time to be real. I actually considered it. Their eyebrows flew up. Oh dear, I'm shocking them. And figured if I did, it should be tomorrow night, because then he'd leave the next day and it wouldn't be weird all day if it didn't go well. Small smiles grew on their faces. They knew I had gone on no dates, had done nothing with men since my marriage ended. You can do whatever you want, okay, Chris said, looking me right in the eyes, her non-judgment clear. You won't think worse of me? I asked, looking down. No, they all said, hugging me. But be intentional about it. Know what you want, said Deb. We're fine with whatever you want to do, but we are going to watch over you, okay? You don't know what you're doing yet, said Chris. True, but I'll be careful, I said, and I hugged each of them. Thank you for being my friends. You're welcome, sweetie, said Deb. We went back out and sat at the bar, and a few minutes later, Eddie passed us, saying, good night. I wasn't as surprised as my friends. I got to my room at 2:30 a.m. As I tried to sleep, I realized Eddie could answer one particular question my friends couldn't. I respect him and trust him to tell me the truth. They'd be too nice because they love me. After I settled on what to say, I slept for a paltry 4 hours, dreaming of him. After breakfast, Eddie was signing books, and I said, I do have a question for you that, well, it might take a little while to answer. Okay, he said, I need some food. 20 minutes? Sure. He ordered and I ate his fries as we talked about everything but my question. I told him of my first ever bathroom intervention the night before, what my friends had said, and what I told them. You would have slept with me tonight, he said, sounding serious and looking me straight in the eyes. Yes, I said, looking him straight in the eyes. It's funny, he said, because normally I'd have already gone there with you. There's obviously something between us. But I've been dating someone for 2 months that I think might go somewhere, and I don't want to ruin it, you know? And with those words, he confirmed my gut. A stand-up, honest, good guy. Yes, I do, I said. But, I thought, drat, I'm actually thinking drats. So what's your question, Janae? Okay, so on that subject, I took a deep breath. You've obviously been with enough women that you can pretty much look at them and know what they look like with their clothes off, right? He nodded and said, yes, I'd say that. So, and I squirmed. I really don't mean to sound as pitiful as this might sound, but I just really do not know, okay? I rushed on. And I know without a doubt that if I asked any of my friends, no matter who, they'd all end up being nice to me instead of giving me a straight answer, and I think you'll be honest with me, okay? He was grinning. Okay. I took another deep breath. Okay, so why are you attracted to me? Like my body, I rushed on again. Because I don't understand how it goes with two relative strangers when they take their clothes off. I mean, do men expect women to be perfect under all those clothes? Like, does everyone have imperfections and flaws, and does everyone expect that? Or are they really disappointed when they see the reality? Because that's what really scares me about sex with other people. And I stopped to breathe. Everybody has flaws, Janae, and everyone expects it, said Eddie, his eyes sparkling. Sometimes it gets in the way, but when there's the kind of chemistry you and I have, it doesn't matter at all. It makes those flaws part of how great it is. Really? Just because a woman has a bit of baby belly or hips doesn't make her less beautiful. I thought, he said a bit, not a lot. Okay, I said, and took a deep breath. I believe him. I chuckled, utterly comfortable. It's too bad, you and me, because I sure would have loved to cuddle with you. I shook my head, eating another of his fries. Oh, I'm fine with cuddling, he said. What? What? I squeaked. I think I'm exiting my body now. You want to do that now? He asked. He looked at his watch. We have time before the banquet. After? I asked, thinking of having to dress up. That would be a different thing, he said, his eyebrows raised. Yes, you're right. Why? Oh. So now? I inhaled through my nose and my entire body started to hum. Yeah, okay. Oh, my dear goodness, shit. We went to the elevators and up to his room. I did not know where to look. Never gone up to a hotel room with a strange man. We took off our shoes. I took off my earrings. I can't relax with jewelry on, I said. He smiled and got on top of the covers of the bed he hadn't slept in. Fully clothed, I lay down next to him, my head on his shoulder, his arm around my back, and my arm around his middle. We talked for a while. I couldn't really tell you what we said, until he said, "Turn over, Janae." Dear Lord, how I've wanted a man to use that tone with me. Not bossy, just sure. I turned over. He sat on my butt and massaged my legs, butt, back, head, neck, and every muscle in between. He did not touch me sexually. No groping or underclothes. When he was done, he laid full on me and ground his hips on mine for a while. Not too much and not too little. Such control. I wanted to move more, but felt like it would all go away if I did. I'm a deer caught in the headlights, and my body begged me to turn over, but I didn't do that either. I said, teasing, "What are you doing, Eddie?" "Showing you what it feels like to be with a man," he said with a smile in his voice. I smiled into the pillow. Really, I thought, but oh my goodness, he knows. We hugged again, me completely relaxed. "Would you rub my back?" he said. Crap, I should have offered, I thought. I'm woozy, I'm so blissed. Yes, of course. He turned over and I sat on his butt and started at the top. His hair was soft, as was his neck and behind his ears. As I rubbed slowly, deliberately, like he had, somehow I woke up. My respect became affection. He had a nice body, nice butt. When I finished head to toe and back, I lay down next to him and stroked his back under his shirt. He turned over and we hugged. Then we noticed the time. 15 minutes to the banquet. "You need to get ready, don't you?" he asked. "Crap! Dang!" I said, getting up on my knees, smiling down at him. I pecked a soft kiss on his lips and said, "Thank you." I need better words, I thought. "Thank you, too," said Eddie, smiling, his eyes half closed. He looks drugged, like I feel. I grabbed my earrings and put on my shoes. He stood up and I gave him a hug and looked out the door to see if anyone was around. All my friends' rooms were on that floor. No one. Phew. I rolled my eyes at myself. I've become a cliche. "See you down there, Eddie." Bye, Janae. I ran to my room where my roommate was leaving. I did not explain my lateness except with an "I'm late." She helped me into my dress and left. I made it to the banquet only a little late. Can they tell how I feel? Afterwards at the bar, Eddie and I chatted for a while, then sat in comfortable silence. Well, sort of. My body was humming. Every cell screaming, "Tell him you need to cuddle again right now." But I respected him. Later, when I saw him walk to the elevators, I threw caution to the wind. "I have one more question." He held the door on the elevator, then let it close as we stood in front of it. "Okay," he said with a slight smile on his face. I could feel his caution. I took a deep breath. "Would you kiss me goodbye?" Pause. He inhaled. "No. That would be a boundary for you." Crap, why did I even ask? I knew the answer. "Yes." Do you not respect me for asking?" I asked, biting my lip. He laughed. "Janae, I respect you, especially of all people, more for asking. It takes guts and more for you." I smiled back. "Okay. I can breathe again. Good night." and sweet dreams. The next day, we chatted at breakfast, and he had to leave for the airport before the keynote speech. We kissed each other's cheek, and he gave me a big hug. "I'll let you know how everything goes," I said. "Please do," he said. And he was gone. Through the speech, through chatting with the lady sitting next to me about writing about her chickens, I wanted to cry, but also couldn't stop smiling. As I drove home, I realized why. I had been heartbroken for 6 months over Owen and several years over Jack. The bottom line with both, however, is that they decided against me. My heartbreak had entrenched. I wanted nothing to do with men. So being attracted to Eddie was a surprise. That he returned the favor was doubly shocking and fun and hot and flattering because he was fun and hot and intelligent. And though he chose against sleeping with me, he chose instead the chance for future friendship. The timing of our cuddling, still intimate, I'd be surprised if he told his girlfriend, was impeccable. The joy, comfort, and damn wish we could do more sexual energy in him made me hope I might find love again. Though I was hopeful, especially with Eddie's words ringing in my ears, I only went on a few dates that summer. No flings, no sex, no boyfriends, no Owen. Months later, I was traveling close to where Eddie lived. I emailed him, assuming nothing. He had no girlfriend. We went on a date. We ended up at his house. We drank tequila and ate mangoes, and we had sex. And it was as great as we thought it might be, though it did feel a bit surreal to be doing it with a guy other than Jack. Eddie was my second. He said, "Oh, you thought you had dived into the deep end of the pool and I threw you in the ocean." He was right. My children. When I started the project, my children were 7, 4, and 1 years old. Though the weight of conventional expectations of motherhood was heavy throughout the project, this question, from Love and Logic, drove me. How will your children know how to have a life if you don't have one? I just realized something. Just now, after all these years, this is from 2016, I left the church when Sage was born. I planned only a few weeks off after her birth because I could not imagine burdening her in the same way I had been. I rebelled, finally. I never went back. Out of love and care for my eternal soul, my parents and community had taught me to be afraid of all ungodliness, which, when you think about it only a little, is simply life itself. It's the opposite of Christ's fear not. Use any metaphor. Hobbled, infected, jailed, they all apply. And I am finally only now beginning to free myself from this fear. I could have rebelled in infinite ways before this, but in parenthood is where mine is most opposite. I want my children to live free of fear, so I've been raising my children quite the opposite of how I was raised. To have Southern-style manners, down to using Miss and Mr. with names that rise out of kindness and empathy, rather than obligation and subservience. To express themselves freely, even with dark or harsh emotions. Sage yelled, "I hate you," at me the first time when she was 4. I responded with, "Thank you for telling me how you feel about that. I love you." As they have gotten older, I've used, "All kids hate their parents sometimes," to not fake an apology. Instead of saying, "You apologize this minute," or "Say you're sorry," I've said, "Do you think you might be ready to talk to your brother about what you did?" I refuse to force them to lie. To be free to be themselves, even when it scares me. I want their personal habits to rise out of preference, less bound to the whip of popular culture. My daughter had beautiful long brown hair until her 15th birthday when we chopped it all off in a faux hawk. She's dyed it almost every color of the rainbow since, and though I mourned her long hair, it's not mine. to make as many mistakes and lapses in judgment as possible before leaving my house. My children are intense. They feel intensely. And not being told how to, quote, be, though tempered with manners and kindness and how we do things, means they have sometimes been assholes. I have had to watch as they were too blunt, unfeeling, mean, and clueless with their friends. Depending on their age and developmental stage, yes, I helped out, guiding and disciplining. But as they've gotten older, I've allowed them to work through the consequences of their crappy actions instead of fixing them or shaming them. We'll see how it pans out. But so far, we seem to be making it okay. Jack and I remained friends, even through the end of our marriage. And that's definitely a strong foundation for our kids. And I try to be as real as possible with them, even regarding my flaws. One thing I've learned, especially over the years of mourning my mother, is that they think as highly of me as I teach them, as highly as I think of myself. Once, after a massive fight with Sage, I said, "My job as your mother is not to be perfect. It is to be present." Mom, not getting it. There we go. It's there. Hang on. I'm taking off the dust cover. In the same week, I started sleeping away from home. In January 2008, my mother was diagnosed with cancer and had emergency surgery. She beat it twice over the following years and then succumbed on December 4th, 2012. All of our family had been there with her at the end, had cared for her in home hospice, and Jack held her frail body in her last hours gently as she died at 2:30 in the morning. Early in 2012, there was a bit of conflict in our family and some assumptions made and words said that cut deep. I called my mom, weeping, begging her not to worry about it because she was fighting cancer, and she said, "There is a place inside you that is shaped like each of the people who hurt you, and this place has nothing to do with them. It's yours. And what you have to do is walk up to that place, however often it takes, and face it and say, 'I love you and I forgive you.' And you may never need to say the words to the people themselves, but you have to say it to their space inside you to prevent becoming bitter." Her childhood had been horrible enough to merit bitterness, and she always credited the Nazarene Church with saving her. She had raised us in the church out of care and love and concern for our eternal souls. She had taught us to seek God and His Holy Spirit, to love Him, to be holy, filled with the breath of God. But especially over this one summer, I had finally come away from that, realizing that being taught to doubt my, quote, carnal motivations and seek healing from outside myself, God, had led to deep fear and self-hatred, the opposite of love. I had to leave what my mom had taught me to finally live, and I had done that by doing this project and knew they disapproved. In early October 2012, it became clear my mother was not healing when she called my sister-in-law and I over to go through and give us her jewelry. We had done so, sitting on her bed, laughing a lot, as late afternoon sun shone through her bedroom window, lighting her face. Out of the blue, Mom said, "You know, girls, we spend so much of our lives, so much time trying to be good and trying to be better people, when what we should really be doing is being ourselves." Inside, I freaked. This was the first time I had ever heard any words like these from my mom. She had raised me, again, in love and in care, in a way best told through a song. Quote, "I am a promise, I am a possibility, I am a promise. with a capital P. I am a great big bundle of potentiality, and I am learning to hear God's voice, and I am trying to make the right choices. I'm a promise to be anything God wants me to be. I don't have any voice. So I was taught that I came out bad with a carnal nature, that I had no value in and of myself. My job was to find what would fix me. God. I had to find God to give me worth. My mom's words had shoved that aside, and in one of the most courageous moments of my life, truly, I hesitantly said to her, well, that's what I've been trying to do with my life and the project and all of this. And I expected her to be concerned out of love, saying, well, yeah, but you just have to be careful, Janae. Instead, she exclaimed, slapping her thigh in emphasis, I know! She said exactly like that. And I just couldn't even believe it. Because in one fell swoop, at the end of her life, she was saying, I was wrong. And what you've been trying to get to all these years is right. By the end of that month, she was worse and more conflict happened. And I sat on her bed, bawling, and she said, there is a strength in you, Janae, that you do not yet see or know. But it is there, and you can trust in it. I see it, have always seen it, have always trusted in it, and it is beautiful and amazing. Her words have carried me through since her death and are finally beginning to come to flower and fruition. Until she died, I thought the summer of this project had been the darkest it could get, with the deepest transformation. I was wrong. Losing my mom, my best friend, was, and I haven't been able to write for a few minutes here, it was the worst time of my life. For over 2 years, I was not sure, consciously or subconsciously, if I wanted to keep going with life. My body shut down, I stopped writing, and I worked hard to simply be present in my children's lives. I forgot how to breathe, how to make connections with people, adrift. My children, Jack, and some dear friends helped me come back to life over the last few years. My mom was the brightest light, so dear. I feel her absence every day. At the end of her life, she gave me the freedom she never found. To be exactly who I discovered myself to be. To not care what anyone else thought about it. I am doing my best to believe and honor her, her wisdom, and her words. My heart, the muscle. Sorry. Sensitive person. Hair. I have repeatedly said that loving Jack and falling in love with Owen made me capable of loving deeply. I had not gone through heartbreak. And I do think heartbreak is necessary to be a fully awake person. Can life look differently and still lovely without it? Sure. But I still think heartbreak matters. Have I found true love? I don't know. I have become good friends with several of the guys I've dated over the last few years. They're great people. I would like to think that if myriad circumstances had been different, one of them would have been the one. I truly love them and am thankful for their continued friendship. Am I afraid the kind of instant kinship I had with Owen will never come again? Yes. Have I thought I had found it, but it didn't pan out? Yes. Intellectually, I no longer believe in the fairy tale, but every cell yearns for cemented intimacy, one person with whom I can grow old and young, someone to know as deeply as possible, someone to know me and love me as deeply as possible. Further, higher, deeper, scared. Don't run from love. Set your feet in the direction of love. Cherish every single relationship, every person in your life, including yourself, in all the ways you can manage. The heart is a muscle, meant to be exercised, not a glass object. How do you make a muscle strong? Microscopic tears through regular use. If you try to cordon off one part of it, you will end up cutting off circulation to the rest. We are out of practice in dealing with the complexities of using our hearts as often as we use our minds. Risk is worth the risk. We have one life. Parentheses, even if we have more, each one is unique and irreplaceable. Shun the deification of risk avoidance. Do not fear. Why do all the wise men say it so often? Because it kills life. Do not murder, even your own self. You are the only you ever. Unless what you want harms other people, what you want matters. Not acknowledging it and going for it often causes more or just as much damage to the people in your life and everyone alive than does moving in the way your soul wants to go. Spend at least one summer night watching the stars move across the sky. Surf it. I am unable to push things under the rug. I face things now. I find myself wanting to walk toward mistakes rather than running from them. If I don't make more mistakes, and I feel I have a lot of catching up to do, how will I learn? I did not have panic attacks for 2 years. When they resurfaced, they had changed. They morphed in the black nights after my mother died, less frequent but more muscular. They have finally begun to wane, or I have become better at surfing. I see that people, basically healthy emotionally and physically and basically intelligent people, do what they want. However they get there, by hook or crook or directly, they eventually do what they want, and the heart wants what it wants. Thermal girl. In 2011, I got a job as program manager for the United States Hang Gliding and Paragliding Association, called USHPA. I didn't stay long because my boss seemed to want a business manager more than me, but it was great while it lasted. At my first fly-in, where pilots from a region meet to hang glide and hang out, I met a long-time hang gliding pilot. He had once built, and flew, a wing from PVC pipe. Badass. It was summer and I was wearing shorts, and as we shook hands, he asked, "Why do you have a thermal on your leg?" I explained that it was like I was at the eye of my storm, but he kept repeating, "It's a thermal, not a storm." USHPA pilots all over the country soon knew me as, quote, thermal girl. Not long before I quit, I got to go hang gliding. A small plane towed the tandem pilot, Mitch, and me to up over 1,000 feet above the ground. I swung from terrified to exhilarated and back. Cutting through the air was loud and fun and overwhelming. Mitch yelled, "We're going to kick into that thermal up ahead." Though it was a small one, we soon soared to 2,000 feet. "We're in!" he yelled. "What's on you?" And as I hung there, far above the earth, buffeted by the earth's version of the ink that wrapped my body, my world shifted. I had known the spiral was my symbol. It was positive across cultures, eras, and religions. It was the fount of creation, the heart of movement from macro to micro, Fibonacci's genius, the dance of chaos and order. My tattoo had grown from a need to survive the storms outside and inside me. I wanted to find a calm place to simply be. But what if my tattoo was a thermal? If a thermal, the line rising from my toe to my back, was the chariot of all winged creatures, updraft to the heavens, hot, powerful, and wholly natural, I would circle with the birds. I would fly higher, faster. I would live above the storm clouds, the wind no longer something to endure, but something to ride. I fly. The end. I'm going to read the acknowledgements because I'm reading everything, okay? It has been 9 years, and now almost 12, since beginning this project. A long haul. Excuse me. Life has intervened, derailed, delayed, and ultimately enriched this story. I cannot count the scads of people, friends and strangers, who have tirelessly cheered me on through every stage. Thank you for rolling with my failed attempt at publishing it serially in 2012. Thank you for not, very often, laughing in my face when I said for the millionth time, it's almost done. As I did the project, I asked a million questions of the downtown citizens of my little city, Colorado Springs. They answered, advised, and commiserated while I flailed and failed and broke through fear. They watched me struggle to write it all down and shape it into a book. From rejuvenating with their enthusiasm to letting me sit in coffee shops without buying anything, I couldn't have done it without them. I wrote most of the book at Wooglin's Deli, Poor Richard's Bookstore and Restaurant, and Rico's, and a Gia Sophia coffee shop. To the owners and staffs, thank you. Thank you to everyone in the book and who sowed wild oats with me. I also thank those who disagreed with me, fearlessly expressing their love and concern despite the consequences, and those who intended to participate but couldn't. None of us could predict how it would change our relationships. Thank you all for loving me however you could. Thank you to Deb Courtney for listening to my heartbreak for all those hours, for feedback on what the final manuscript needed, and for being my friend through so much. Thank you to Anne Davenport for that final read, for being the first person on the planet to spend a whole night of life reading my words, and for having such a strong heart for it, our friendship and life. You rock. Thank you to Rebecca Tillett for the cover photo, Matt Malarchuk for art direction, Robin Jones for cover design and being the book's sugar mama, Mike Reardon for investing in the initial print run and founding of Spiral Publishing, Deanna Knipling for her above and beyond formatting skills and timely advice, and the myriad folks I cornered and asked one of a million questions about this process, their opinion of one obscure point in the book, or just for a hug. Thank you to Hillary Studebaker for being my friend and for teaching me, quote, wholeheartedly, lightheartedly. Thank you to Jordan for knowing me, for honoring our friendships in indefinable roots, for never being proper. To my family, thank you for loving me through, quote, that crazy book project that must have seemed like it ruined my life. Though I have become the black sheep, I hope the wool keeps you warm. My ex-husband's constant belief in me and support of my writing life, our children, and this book have made it possible to write and finish, especially in this long year since wholly focusing on it, long after our marriage ended. He is my friend for life, and I thank him. Thank you, my children, Sophia, Xavier, and Solomon, for looking me in the eyes when I asked for more time to write and telling me it was okay, for trusting that I was doing it for you. I hope to see you all go for what you want, willing to risk and jump off cliffs, metaphorically, truly living your beautiful one life. I love you. That's all. That's all. I kind of can't believe it's like, I thought I would be doing half an hour every time, but it didn't feel right. So thanks for sticking with the longer format. That felt right to do one chapter or a couple really short ones. Yeah, I need you to know, as a writer, like an artist, I need you to totally know that like I have been editing the entire time. Like in my head, I have been editing, cutting words, and like that part's not clear, even though I read it. You know, I mean, I edited this thing for years. We're just never done with art when we're artists or writers. So thank you for being with me through this process. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be in front of the camera a little bit more, and now I see that that picture is crooked. It's been crooked the whole time. I'm not, as I say to my friends, I'm only OCD enough to be like interesting. Anyway, yeah, I'm kind of figuring out what next steps are. I am writing the guide to this book, kind of how to make your own list and how to navigate the doing of it by using this as an example. If you have any thoughts or feedback or questions or comments, feel free to message me. Anything you'd like me to talk about or discuss or mull over, I would really appreciate it. And I guess I need to do a plug for the book. If you know anybody who needs to read it or you think would like it, the paperback's fun to feel and fun to hold. It's a nice book to hold. Okay? Thank you for holding me through this whole thing. Again, last thank you. And I hope to see you guys in person someday. What do I need to say? Oh yeah. I'm doing Story Project. I'll be posting about it. I'm telling a story at our local storytelling show in February, and it is the second Friday of February. So keep your eyes peeled for my post about that. Okay? Bye. Take care. Be good to yourselves.